And Amy, well, there was a lot of national security discussion in the vice presidential debate. There's sure to be on Sunday in the town hall as well.
We could only hope.
Of course, Mike Pence's flourish that the references to Putin are not an endorsement of Putin in terms of his success and his increasing power vis-a-vis the United States. They're not lauding Putin. They're indicting the weakness and fecklessness of the Obama administration. For more on this and to preview some of these similar issues that will certainly be taken up on Sunday's debate, we're pleased to be joined again by our friend Michael Rubin, former Pentagon official and a scholar at the American Enterprise Institute. And Michael, I want to start with this little nugget. As these emails continue to be disclosed, thanks to Freedom of Information Act requests by groups like Citizens United and Judicial Watch, we find Uma Abedin, Mrs. Carlos Danger.
Uma.
Mrs. What was his new nickname? T-Dog?
T-Dog.
Mrs. T-Dog sang in 2009 to Bill Clinton that he should reject a speaking invitation to AIPAC, the American Israel Public Affairs Council, asking Bill Clinton's assistant in an email, this is Uma Abedin, you really want to consider sending him into that crowd? And Abedin's that crowd comment is drawing rebuke from conservative and liberal Jews alike. What
does that mean?
How did you take that question that Uma Abedin posed to Bill Clinton's assistant, Michael?
Well, there seems to be a discrepancy between the rhetoric of both Bill and Hillary Clinton to external audiences and what they say privately, and this is becoming more the rule than the exception. We also see the same sort of issue coming with regard to, for example, Hillary Clinton's close advisor and associate, Sidney Blumenthal, sending some of the most vitriolic conspiracy theories with regard to AIPAC, some of them perpetrated by his son, Max Blumenthal, who likened Israel to a Nazi concentration camp. And the whole thing is just preposterous. And the fact that Hillary Clinton, and Bill for that matter, never separated themselves from someone who was offering these sorts of analogies and advice, be it Sidney Blumenthal, be it Huma Abedin, really leads to questions about their judgment.
Well, Israel's supposed to be our key ally in the Middle East. What is the Clintons' relationship, say, with Benjamin Netanyahu? Just describe it for us.
Well, it's a relationship that is somewhat fraught. And Benjamin Netanyahu was an Israeli prime minister during part of Clinton's term as well. And while Clinton had very close relations with some of the opposition at the time, Ehud Barak, Yitzhak Rabin, who was prime minister, who was assassinated, and so forth, they really seemed to resent what Israel was doing with regard to its strong counterterrorism and so forth. And one of the ironies, of course, of this is when the United States is attacked, we do the same sort of strategies that Israel does. I mean, attacking the terrorists and so forth, because the job of any democratically elected leader is to protect the security of its citizens.
I was listening to noted geopolitical thinker Leonardo DiCaprio the other day.
And what did you learn, Dan?
I learned that if you don't believe in the junk science that's advanced by the Al Gores of the world, then you are unfit for office. Following up on that, noted geopolitical thinker of the same caliber, Barack Obama, he's the president, suggested that part of the explanation for the 400,000 dead in Syria and the dictatorship of Assad managing to hang on, and the Syrian refugee crisis is climate change. And so the question, I guess, Michael, is until we solve whatever the left says is the climate change threat, can we hope to bring peace to Syria?
Well, let me be blunt here. It's not climate change that is responsible for all the deaths in Syria. To be perfectly blunt, it's the lack of transgender bathrooms.
Finally, you put your
exactly.
finger on
Someone's
it.
willing to say it. I mean, the point of this is both theories are absolutely ridiculous. The fact of the matter is, and I mean, my first degree is in biology, environmental biology, actually, is when you have mathematical models that have no predictive value, then it's ridiculous to make predictions from them, let alone calibrate multi-billion-dollar policies to them. So this whole notion is just ridiculous. It's become the favorite scare tactic of the left in many ways, either to redistribute wealth or to perpetrate other causes to which they're tied, or they simply want to distract away from the accountability. The buck doesn't stop at President Obama's desk anymore. The buck stops with some monster called global warming.
So we're 3 days away until the next debate. Do you think Donald Trump should bring up the fact that about Hillary's emails and just hit home more that she jeopardized our national security?
I think absolutely that's going to be in his interest to do. The fact of the matter is, I mean, it's one thing to hit delete once. It's another thing to hit delete 30,000 times. And when when Hillary Clinton says that there was nothing here, the fact of the matter is every single leak we have proves that she has been lying, and one doesn't need to lie unless one is a congenital liar or unless one's trying to hide something. And in this case, there are real questions about what's going on. Now, that's not an endorsement of Donald Trump in any way, shape, and form. God knows he has a lot of vulnerabilities as well, but the whole point of these debates is to push out some transparency, some accountability, and it's more important for Donald Trump to do this towards Hillary because the media is on Hillary's side, and therefore the only person who's going to be exposing this sort of thing is Donald Trump if he's able to make questions in this town hall setting.
If he's able to kind of represent some of the arguments that Pence made about the Clinton Foundation, about emails, and also in particular about the ascendancy of ISIS, properly putting Putin in context in terms of the comments that have been made. Did you find Pence's lines of argumentation and explanation effective to the extent that Donald Trump should rinse and repeat them?
Yes, I think he was very effective. He was a very good debater. He was very relaxed. He was very focused. Now, when it comes to Putin, look, I'm uncomfortable. On one hand, I understand what Donald Trump is saying, that if he's trying to argue that he admires Putin because Putin takes care of his country, Putin puts his country first. That said, you need to recognize that Putin's also an adversary who wants to end the United States of America. And putting rhetoric aside, some of the ties which Donald Trump's closest advisors have had to Putin are deeply troubling. That said, one of Clinton's top surrogates, Ellen Tauscher, who's a former Undersecretary of State during the Clinton State Department, ended up retiring, went to the Atlantic Council, and ended up taking money from the Kremlin to put through a project which was all about how Russia's not so much of a threat. So when Hillary Clinton's closest advisors are taking money from the Kremlin, when Hillary Clinton herself refuses to say that this reset policy she initiated was a mistake, there's reason to question her judgment on Russia as well.
All right. He is Michael Rubin. He's a resident scholar for the American Enterprise Institute, the author of the book Dancing with the Devil. Michael, thanks so much for joining us as always. Appreciate it.
Hey, thanks, Dan. Thanks, Amy.
And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.